Dawn in Ironwood wildlands shattered by panicked roars. Sorrel, a mighty grizzly, thrashed against 20 feet of python squeezing the life from her. Ribs creaked. Vision blurred. The serpent's coils tightened like living steel cables. Then, crashing through aspens, a thunderous answer. The python's head snapped up, tasting danger. Something bigger was coming. Something furious. And it moved with single-minded purpose. Sorrel's whimpers faded as shadows collided. This wasn't just predator versus prey. This was an invasion, and one bear would defy nature itself to stop it. Talon should have kept walking. Grizzlies don't rescue, they dominate or ignore. But Sorrel's scent carried something primal. He charged 800 pounds of fury, scattering birds for miles. The python struck. Talon's claws found scales. They rolled, smashing saplings, staining leaves crimson. Then the impossible. As Sorrel collapsed, Talon nudged her, whining. Not triumph. Not hunger. Pleading. Rangers arriving saw it too, bloodied fur, shattered instincts. This wasn't just a fight. It was a choice. And in that moment, Talon proved some bonds outmuscle even evolution. Ranger Chris Taylor's truck skidded to gravel. Through binoculars, Talon ravaging the python, Sorrel motionless. Back up now. He radioed, voice cracking. Darts ready, medics hesitated. Then the miracle. Talon stepped back. Not retreat. Invitation. His eyes locked on Chris's, help her. Against protocol, they moved in. Talon watched, trembling, as IVs pierced Sorrel's fur. No growls. No attacks. Just trust. Later, Dr. Mitchell would call it conscious cooperation. But the Rangers knew better. They'd witnessed something purer. Something older. The unspoken language of desperate love. Pythons kill through patience. But patience means nothing against fury. Talon struck like a landslide. Jaws on spine. Claws unzipping scales. The python whipped him into granite. He charged again. And again. Then Sorrel stirred. Weak but defiant. She bit the serpent's midsection. Coordinated attack. The python panicked, loosening coils to face Talon. Fatal mistake. Talon's final crunch echoed through Briarback Ridge. Not just victory. Vengeance. As the python went limp, Talon didn't celebrate. He limped to Sorrel, licking her wounds. The message was clear. You fight. I fight. We fight together. Oxygen fading. Heart slowing. Sorrel's world narrowed to pain. Until the forest intervened. A hornet's nest fell, stinging python eyes. A log rolled, disrupting the death drag toward water. Talon seized his moment. 1,200 psi of bite force. Crack. The python spasmed, then stilled. Silence. Then Sorrel's gasp. Talon nosed her ribs, whimpering. Not just checking. Encouraging. Breathe. And she did. Ragged. Weak. But alive. Around them, the woods whispered approval. Nature had chosen sides. Not predator or prey, but something rarer. Two hearts beating as one against the dark. Blood matted Talon's fur as he groomed Sorrel's wounds. Not for hygiene. For her. Rangers approached. He blocked them, not with threats but stance. Prove you'll help. Sedation failed twice until Talon rumbled at Sorrel's ear. She stilled. Understood? Maybe. Loading her into the truck, Talon clawed the door, muzzle fogging glass. Not rage. Terror. Of losing her. The photo of his paw against the window broke the internet. But the real story was quieter. The way his roars turned to whines as the engine faded. Not a hunter's cry. A lover's lament. One blurry photo. Talon's head bowed over Sorrel like a vigil. Hashtag bear love exploded. Behind the hashtag, midnight sirens through Frostfang's trails. Talon's eyes reflecting headlights as he chased the convoy. Wildroots gamble. Adjoining enclosures. Science said, impossible. Then Sorrel's vitals spiked when Talon's scent drifted in. Camera footage caught him pressed to fencing for hours. Rumbling. Her eyes opened. His shoulders relaxed. Not coincidence. Connection. When Talon pushed a salmon through the bars, biologists gasped. Courtship? No. This was deeper. The world watched as nature rewrote its own rules. The grizzly pieta broke servers. Talon's nose against Sorrel's paw through fencing, eyes half closed. What it didn't show, his 48-hour fast. His snarls at brisk medics. his salmon gift when she stood. Anthropomorphism, critics cried, until thermal scans revealed Talon's body heat regulating sorrels. Deliberate, calculated. The truth? Love isn't human. It's universal. Written in shared warmth, traded breaths, silent sacrifices. As Sorrel nuzzled his offering, Talon did something unprecedented. He chuffed. Not a sound grizzlies make. Until now. Until her. The internet wept. Science took notes. And the wild? Just smiled. Forensics told the tale. 3 fractured ribs. Oxygen at 60%. Death was seconds away. Then Talon's tactical genius. Thermal drones showed it. His attacks timed to create air pockets for Sorrel. Baiting the python, taking hits, all to buy her milliseconds of breath. Not instinct. Strategy. Congress would later debate the footage. Battlefield triage, Dr. Mitchell called it. But the Rangers remembered Talon's eyes as Sorrel finally gasped freely. Not triumph. Relief. And something else, fear. Not of death. Of loss. Because some risks aren't calculated. They're compelled. By the oldest force of all. Jessica Collins' hands shook. Sedate Sorrel? Risk cardiac arrest. Dart Talon? Lose their only lifeline. Bring them in together, she ordered, a first in Wildroot history. Then the miracle. Talon entered the transfer cage voluntarily when shown it led to Sorrel. Security footage captured it. 800 pounds of wildness ducking his head, eyes locked on her. Not trained. Not tricked. Trusting. Later, Jessica would say the tears weren't for the broken rules. They were for the truth it revealed. That when love speaks, even giants listen. And sometimes the wildest hearts teach us what it means to be human. Just as Sorrel healed, shadows moved again. The python's mate struck from the rocks, fangs aiming for Talon's throat. He twisted. Too late. Venom burned through his foreleg. Sorrel's roar shook the trees as she lunged, not fleeing but attacking. The python recoiled, unprepared for her fury. Talon collapsed, breathing ragged. Rangers arriving found them back-to-back, Sorrel guarding Talon now, lips peeled in a snarl. The message was clear, roles reversed, but the promise unchanged. My turn. The dart took Sorrel first. As sedation hit, her last act, placing one paw over Talon's wound. Even unconscious, she remembered. Protocols screamed no. 2 wild grizzlies? Never. But Sorrel hadn't eaten in 72 hours. Talon paced, shredding logs to splinters. Jessica made the call. The gate creaked open. Talon froze. Then slow steps toward Sorrel's enclosure. Staff held their breath. Would he attack? Claim territory? Instead, he nudged Sorrel's limp paw. A whine escaped his throat. Then, he began to eat. Not for hunger. For her. Taking morsels to her side, dropping them gently. When Sorrel finally lifted her head, Talon's rumble wasn't dominance. It was encouragement. Jessica wiped her eyes. Some rules deserved breaking. Blood dripped where no one looked, beneath Talon's thick shoulder fur. A python funk still buried deep. He'd hidden it for days, refusing to show weakness. Until collapse. Dr. Mitchell's probe revealed the horror, infection spreading toward his heart. Sorrel sensed it first. Her wails brought staff running. As Talon faded, she did the unthinkable, pressing her forehead to his, breathing in sync. Stay. His surgery took hours. When he awoke, Sorrel was there, waiting. And for the first time, Talon didn't stiffen at human touch. Because pain teaches strange alliances. And love? It rewrites endings. Moonlight painted Briarback Ridge silver when the new python struck. But this time? No surprise. Talon met at mid-lunge, jaws crushing skull. Sorrel flanked, blocking escape. A coordinated kill. Rangers arriving found them standing over the corpse, breathing hard. Not in panic. In unison. Then Talon licked Sorrel's old scars. She nuzzled his healed shoulder. No celebration. Just quiet confirmation. We protect our own. The carcass was left untouched. Not food. A warning. As dawn broke, the bears vanished into the mist. But the legend? That stayed. Some bonds aren't just survival. They're destiny. 3 cracked ribs. Torn muscles. A punctured lung. Sorrel's chart read like a death sentence. Yet each night, Talon pressed against her enclosure wall, his heat seeping through. When she whimpered, he chuffed steady as a heartbeat. Dr. Sarah noticed, Sorrel's healing accelerated when Talon was near. Science scoffed. Until the data proved it. Reduced inflammation. Stabilized vitals. As if his presence alone was medicine. Release day came. The gate opened. Sorrel limped out straight to Talon. His nose met her scars gently. Not inspection. Acceptance. Then side by side, they walked home. Where broken things mend together. Dr. Mitchell froze. The python's necropsy revealed eggs. Dozens. And they weren't sterile. Ironwood's ecosystem faced invasion. The news sent rangers scrambling, but Talon already knew. He'd begun patrolling Briarback Ridge nightly, Sorrel at his side. Not for food. For war. Trail cams caught them methodically destroying nests, Talon's claws shredding leathery shells. No instinct explained this. No hunger motivated it. Just memory. And maybe justice. When rangers found the last clutch, the bears were already there. Waiting. As if to say, we remember. We prevent. We protect. The wild had chosen its guardians. It wasn't the battle that defined Talon. It was the aftermath. As Sorrel lay gasping, he did something unprecedented, gathered moss to cushion her head. Brought water in his cupped paws. Rangers watched, stunned. Grizzlies don't nurse. Don't share. Don't care. Yet here was Talon, refusing to drink until Sorrel lapped first. When medics approached, he barred their path, then stepped aside after sniffing their bags. Recognizing help. Trusting. The biologist's camera caught it the exact second Talon made his choice. Eyes locked on Sorrel's, he lowered his massive head. Not submission. Dedication. Where you go, I go. Release day dawned bright. Sorrel hesitated at Wildroot's gate, scars gleaming. Talon waited yards away, watching. Staff braced for separation anxiety. Then Sorrel turned back. Not toward freedom. Toward Talon. Their noses touched. A breath shared. Then she walked away. Talon didn't follow. Cameras zoomed in. Was that wetness in his eyes? Tears don't exist in bears. Except, maybe today they did. 2 days later, rangers found them together at Briarback Ridge. Not coincidence. Choice. Because goodbye wasn't forever. Just until we meet again. And the wild, it seemed, had its own reunion plans. The third python never stood a chance. Talon ambushed it at the riverbank, Sorrel cutting off retreat. No struggle. No drama. Just efficiency. Years later, rangers would find the skull, crushed with surgical precision. A message carved in bone. That season, python sightings in Ironwood dropped to 0. Not from lack of prey. From reputation. Word spreads in the wild. And the legend of 2 bears who refused to be victims? That lingers. Trail cams still capture them. Talon's muzzle now gray, Sorrel's limp faint but present. Still patrolling. Still together. Because some wars aren't fought for territory. For legacy. It started with a salmon. Talon dropping it at Sorrel's feet post-recovery. Then, moss gathered for her den. Berries carried gently in his jaws. Rangers exchanged glances. Grizzlies don't gift. Except these did. Months later, the ultimate proof. Sorrel leading Talon to a secret meadow, where she dug a den. Not for sleep. For birth. 3 cubs emerged weeks later. 2 with Sorrel's eyes. 1 with Talon's scar. He stood guard as they played, turning gentle for the first time in his life. The rangers lowered their binoculars, humbled. The impossible wasn't just survival. It was family. The sound pierced Talon's solitude. Sorrel's distress call echoing through Frostfang expanse. Not a mating cry. A plea. His response shook the valley. Trees trembled as 800 pounds of grizzly fury exploded toward Briarback Ridge. The python never saw him coming. Talon's attack wasn't hunting. It was vengeance. Claws tore through scale and flesh with terrifying precision. When Sorrel finally gasped free, Talon stood over her, heaving. Not from exhaustion. From fear. His nose brushed her ear. A silent question. Her weak lick to his muzzle was answer enough. The message was clear. I heard you. I came. Always. Biologists argued. Impossible, they said. Grizzlies don't form lasting pairs. Yet trail cameras told another story. Talon and Sorrel sharing kills. Denning together. Even playing in the shallows like cubs. The proof came in autumn when Sorrel chased off a younger male near Talon's favorite fishing spot. Not for territory. For him. Rangers exchanged knowing glances. The rules had changed. Love letters were written in claw marks on shared trees. Poetry in synchronized patrols. And when winter came, They denayed together, breaking every known behavior. Some bonds defy textbooks. Some hearts rewrite nature's laws. Talon's forelegs swelled grotesquely, venom creeping toward his heart. Sorrel watched, eyes wide with understanding. Then she vanished. Rangers searched in vain until a distant crash echoed through Ironwood. They found her at the abandoned ranger station, claws shredding the medical cabinet. Antibiotics spilled across the floor. She selected a bottle with her teeth, carrying it gently back to Talon. Coincidence? Maybe. But when Dr. Mitchell administered the exact needed drug, Sorrel licked Talon's face rhythmically, keeping him conscious. The vet's hands shook. "They're teaching us," she whispered, and for the first time science listened. The cubs were trapped, 3 tiny balls of fur wedged between boulders as the river rose. Sorrel's roars brought Talon charging, but the current was too strong. Then the impossible. Talon dove in, ignoring his own terror of water. His massive body became a bridge as Sorrel carefully extracted each cub. Not theirs. Not even the same species, orphaned black bears. Yet when Talon collapsed on shore, Sorrel groomed his waterlogged fur like he'd given her the world. Because in that moment he had. Parenthood isn't blood. It's the choice to love what needs you, even when it's not yours. Scientists called it cooperative survival. Rangers knew better. When Sorrel limped from her winter den, Talon was waiting, having dug the exit wider for her injured hip. He presented his first spring salmon not with dominance but ceremony. She ate half, then pushed the remainder back to him. A ritual. A language. That afternoon, they swam together, Talon supporting Sorrel's weak side in the current. Cameras captured it all, the nuzzles, the shared naps, the way Talon always positioned himself between her and danger. Not instinct. Not chance. Choice. The wild had always known love. We were just slow learners. The eggs hatched. Not dozens, hundreds. Ironwood's ecosystem trembled as juvenile pythons emerged, drawn inexplicably to Briarback Ridge. Talon and Sorrel stood back to back that first night, a living fortress against the slithering tide. What followed wasn't hunting. It was eradication. Talon's claws became scythes, Sorrel's jaws snapping with mechanical precision. By dawn, the ridge was littered with remains. But one survivor escaped, a single python slipping into the river. Talon lunged after it, then stopped. Sorrel's whine had called him back. Priorities realigned. Some battles aren't worth the cost. Not when love needs guarding more than vengeance. Winter came early. Sorrel's old injuries ached in the cold, leaving her lethargic. When a mountain lion stalked their valley, Talon didn't just defend, he hunted. The big cat's pelt later lined Sorrel's den. When fish grew scarce, he trekked miles to a secret trout stream, carrying catches back in his jaws. Rangers tracking them saw the truth. Talon now hunted only what Sorrel could easily digest. Tender leaves. Soft berries. Even chewing tough meat before offering it. Not survival. Devotion. The wild demands strength. But true power? It's choosing weakness to carry another's burden as your own. The infrared footage told the secret story. While rangers slept, Talon had stood guard over Sorrel's den for 72 straight hours. Through rain, through cold. Not sleeping, not eating, just watching. When she finally emerged, weak from infection, he presented not food, but medicine. Chewed yarrow leaves, a natural antibiotic, pressed gently to her wounds. Sorrel accepted the treatment without protest, as if this ritual was years old. The timestamp read 3:17 a.m. No audience, no reward, just love in its purest form, care given when no one's watching. Because true devotion needs no witnesses. The wildfire advanced faster than predicted. Chris Taylor's radio crackled. Evacuate now. But Talon and Sorrel were separated. She in the northern meadow, he at Briarback Ridge. One truck. Impossible choices. Then a miracle. As flames crested the hill, Talon came crashing through smoke, Sorrel clinging to his back. How he'd found her, no one knew. The bears piled into the transport cage together without prompting. Through the rear window, Chris saw Talon licking soot from Sorrel's face as they bounced down the mountain. Some bonds outlast even fire. Because when everything burns away, only love remains unbroken. The last python's stomach contents revealed the horror. Plastic. Fishing line. A zoo tag reading, Escaped. April 15th. This wasn't nature's imbalance. It was human negligence. Talon and Sorrel had been cleaning up our mess. The revelation changed everything. Rangers expanded patrols. Scientists studied the bears' hunting patterns. And the world, it finally saw them not as animals, but guardians. When Talon emerged that spring with a fresh scar across his shoulder, Sorrel groomed it tenderly. Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear scars. And some, they walk on four legs, teaching us how to protect what we've broken. Rain fell in sheets as Talon stood motionless over Sorrel's unconscious form. 3 days, 3 nights, not eating, not sleeping. Rangers tried to intervene. His growl sent them back. Thermal imaging showed the truth. Talon's body heat was warming her core temperature. When she finally stirred, his exhausted eyes met hers. Slowly, deliberately, he collapsed beside her. Not from weakness, from relief. The storm raged on. But in that den, something miraculous happened. 2 wild hearts beat in perfect sync. Some watches never end. They simply change form. The last confrontation came at moonrise. The massive python struck from water, wrapping Talon's hindquarters. Sorrel reacted instantly, not with panic, but precision. Her jaws found the exact spot behind its skull. One crunch. Game over. But the victory came at cost. Talon's leg would never fully heal. What happened next rewrote science books. Sorrel began hunting for them both, while Talon guarded their territory. An exchange of roles. An evolution of love. The scars they carried weren't wounds. They were signatures on a contract written in blood. I take your weakness. You take mine. Together, we're whole. Age came for Sorrel first. Her once powerful frame now moved stiffly. But when poachers entered their valley, she stood tall beside Talon. The gunshot echoed. Missed. What followed wasn't attack, it was strategy. Sorrel created diversions while Talon flanked. When it was over, the men fled without their equipment. Security footage showed Sorrel's final act of defiance, crushing their rifle between 2 boulders. Then, exhausted, she leaned into Talon's steadying bulk. Even in twilight, her spirit burned bright. Because surrender isn't about strength fading. It's about love persisting when the body can't. The drone footage went global in minutes. Talon, standing chest-deep in the raging river, forming a living bridge for Sorrel to cross safely. His muscles trembled from the current's force. But he didn't budge. Not when ice chunks battered his sides. Not when the water reached his nostrils. Only when Sorrel reached the far bank did he follow, immediately checking her for injuries. The internet dubbed it #LoveLikeABear. Scientists called it interspecies altruism. But the rangers who knew them understood the simpler truth. When you love someone, you become their bridge. No matter the flood. Sedation was failing. Sorrel's panicked thrashing threatened her healing ribs. Then Talon did something unprecedented. He pressed against the medical enclosure and began humming. Not a growl. Not a roar. A deep, vibrating rumble from his chest. Slowly, Sorrel stilled. Her breathing synchronized to his rhythm. The vet team froze. This wasn't documented grizzly behavior. It was invention, creation, a lullaby forged in the crucible of care. Years later, researchers would identify similar vibrations in wild bear dens. But that night, it was simply love making music where words failed. It attacked at dawn, targeting Sorrel's blind side. What it didn't know, Talon had been watching its approach for hours. The ambush became counter-ambush. Talon's crushing bite to its midsection coincided perfectly with Sorrel's rake across its eyes. Perfect synchronization. Perfect trust. As the python fled, the bears didn't give chase. They stood shoulder to shoulder, watching it go. The message was clear. Underestimate us separately, and you might survive. Underestimate what we've become together? That's a fatal error. The valley learned that day, 2 bears united aren't double the threat. They're exponential. Jessica Collins faced termination when she opened Talon's enclosure during Sorrel's medical crisis. But as the massive bear approached the sedated female, something miraculous happened. Talon began removing debris from Sorrel's wounds with his teeth, areas the vets had missed. Then he positioned himself to keep her airway open. The head vet's pen hovered over the disciplinary form, then lowered. Sometimes rules exist to be broken. Sometimes love knows better than textbooks. And sometimes, the wild teaches the keepers how to truly care. Jessica kept her job. But more importantly, the bears kept each other. Ranger Chris Taylor would swear to it until his dying day, the moisture in Talon's eyes as he dragged Sorrel's limp form to the ranger station. Not rain. Not sweat. A single, perfect tear cutting through blood and dirt. The sight shattered protocol. Chris radioed for help before Talon even finished his desperate knocking at the door. Later, scientists would debate bear tear ducts. But in that moment, there was no debate. Only recognition. When words fail, when species divide, when all seems lost, a tear translates perfectly. And sometimes it's the only language that matters. Years after the last python fell, its legacy lived on, not in scales, but in behavior. Talon developed a telltale head tilt when sensing snakes. Sorrel would stand guard as he destroyed every shed skin they found. Rangers documented these rituals with awe. This wasn't instinct. It was education. Memory. A lesson carved into their very being and passed to their cubs. The valley became a no-go zone for serpents. Not from habitat, from history. Because when love survives trauma, it doesn't just heal. It learns. It teaches. It builds fortresses no invader can breach. It began as tragedy. Sorrel trapped beneath a landslide. For hours, Talon dug with bare paws until they bled. Rangers prepared for the worst. Then a sound. Not from the rubble. From above. A passing herd of elk, unusually, began stomping near the slide's edge. Their hooves dislodged a key boulder. Talon seized the moment, pulling Sorrel free as the elk moved on. Coincidence? Maybe. But the way Sorrel later nuzzled an elk calf separated from its herd suggested something deeper. As if the wild itself had chosen sides. And in Yellowstone, when nature votes, miracles happen. The depression came after Sorrel lost her first cubs. She stopped eating, stopped swimming, just stared at the river where they'd vanished. Talon's response? He began bringing her gifts. Not food treasures. Perfectly round stone. An eagle feather. Once, a whole branch of autumn leaves. Slowly, her eyes regained their light. When spring came, they denayed together again. This time, 3 healthy cubs emerged. Rangers still debate what changed. But the truth was simple. Talon didn't fix her broken pieces. He loved them until she could love them too. Because healing isn't replacement. It's remembrance made bearable. The last python died ironically not by tooth or claw, but by its own greed. Talon and Sorrel herded it toward a frozen lake, where its weight proved fatal. As ice cracked beneath the serpent, the bears watched from shore. No celebration, no gloating, just silent witness to justice served. Later, Sorrel would scratch deep marks in the lakeside tree, not territory markings. Memorials. Rangers found 7 in total. 1 for each life the snakes had taken. The wild keeps its own accounting. And when the ledger balances, even predators can become protectors. Even victims can write endings. Dr. Mitchell's hands trembled as she reviewed the x-rays. Talon's healed fractures formed near-perfect constellations, each aligning with Sorrel's worst injuries, as if he'd deliberately taken impacts meant for her. The final proof? A python fang still embedded near his spine, from intercepting a strike aimed at Sorrel's neck. This level of sacrifice. The vet whispered, wiping her eyes. The bears, now curled together in recovery, paid no mind. To them, it wasn't remarkable. It was routine. Love isn't measured in grand gestures. It's counted in small surrenders, each fracture, each scar. A silent "you matter more." Poachers returned at midnight. They didn't see Talon waiting in the aspens. Didn't notice Sorrel circling behind. What followed wasn't hunting. It was judgment. The bears moved with terrifying coordination, Talon crushing guns under boulders, Sorrel shredding tires with surgical precision. When the men fled screaming, they left more than equipment. They left their arrogance. Trail cams captured the aftermath. Talon nuzzling Sorrel's shoulder where a bullet had grazed her. Not relief. Gratitude. for the chance to protect what he loved. That night, Ironwood's balance shifted. Not all guardians walk upright. Some wear fur. Some write justice in claw marks. The autopsy revealed the horror. The python wasn't alone. Its stomach held plastic from a private zoo's feeding cage. GPS tags led rangers to an illegal breeding facility upstream. Talon and Sorrel had been fighting humanity's mess all along. As authorities raided the compound, the bears watched from a ridge. Their work wasn't done. That winter, they systematically destroyed every abandoned cage they found. Not in rage, in ritual. Some battles aren't against nature, but for it. And when the wild chooses champions, they come with claws, with courage, with a love deeper than any profit motive. When Talon vanished for 2 weeks, rangers feared the worst. Then one morning, Sorrel's excited roars echoed through the valley. There he stood battered but alive with 3 orphaned grizzly cubs trailing behind. How he'd found them, no one knew. Why he brought them to Sorrel, that was clearer. As she gathered the trembling cubs to her, Talon collapsed into exhausted sleep, his head resting against her paw. The message was unmistakable. I will always come home, and I will always bring what I find that's broken. Because love isn't just protection. It's invitation. The footage needed no narration. Talon, facing a raging forest fire, refusing to abandon Sorrel's side as she struggled with injured legs. Not carrying her. Not leaving her. Simply matching her pace. His body shielding hers from the worst heat. When they finally reached the river, the world held its breath. Until Talon gently pushed Sorrel into the cooling waters first. 80 million views. 12 language translations. One undeniable truth. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that someone else's survival matters more than your own. And in that moment, 2 bears taught humanity what heroism really looks like. The final confrontation happened at the abandoned ranger cabin. The massive python, cornered at last, coiled to strike. But Talon and Sorrel didn't attack. They waited. Then, a thunderous crack. The rotting roof collapsed, pinning the serpent under beams. The bears hadn't come to fight. They'd come to witness. As the python struggled, Sorrel did something astonishing. She pulled away the debris just enough for it to escape into the waiting jaws of a wolf pack. Justice in the wild takes many forms. Sometimes it's swift. Sometimes it's poetic. And sometimes, it's 2 bears who understand the value of letting nature balance its own scales. Jessica's journal pages told the real story. Not of protocols followed, but of lines crossed. The midnight supply runs for extra medical equipment. The ignored orders to separate the bears. The time she smuggled Talon into Sorrel's enclosure during a storm. They're not just animals, she wrote. They're a mirror. Years later, when wildfires claimed that Ranger Station only one item was recovered intact, the journal found safely buried near Talon and Sorrel's favorite den. Some secrets aren't meant to burn. Some truths, once written, become as enduring as the love that inspired them. When Sorrel's time finally came, she didn't slip away quietly. She lumbered to their special meadow, the one where Talon had first brought her salmon years before. There she waited. Talon found her at sunset. What passed between them needed no witnesses. Rangers discovered them at dawn, Talon's massive head resting gently on Sorrel's still chest, his paws encircling her. He stayed 3 days before finally rising. But he never truly left. To this day, fresh flowers appear on that spot each spring. Carried by whom? Only the wild knows. Because some loves don't end. They simply change form from presence to memory, from touch to legacy.